Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I want to show you how to take the user input in C#, how to convert it into different types, and then I'm going to explain you what is the difference between conversion and casting. Let's continue with the user input first. So for the user input, we use different statements like console.readline, where we want to take the whole user input as a string. When we want to take more than one character input, we use console.readline. Or we can use console.readKey when we want to take a single character input. By default, whatever the user input is, that will be treated as a string, whether you enter number, date, or characters, or whatever. We use different methods, built-in methods in C# to convert them into different types, like to convert the user input into date, time, and numbers, and floats, and doubles, and char, and all these. So some of the methods that we use is int.parse, or convert that to int32, or convert that to int16 for short, or to convert that to int64 for long. We can use double.parse to convert a given input into double. So I'm going to show you all these now in a minute. Okay, let's go to Visual Studio. Right, so I've opened Visual Studio 2022. Click on Create New. Open any console project. Next, give it a name like say user input. And as I explained in the previous tutorial, whenever you create your new project, you will get something by default, bit of code like this. You can have a namespace, you can have your class name, you can have a method. If you don't have in a new .NET framework, you just create any class, and within any class, you need to make sure that you have this method, static, void, main, string arguments. This is the starting point of your application, so make sure that you have this method, otherwise your application will not run. So just to check it that the system works, I'm going to type here console.writeline. As you can see, the IntelliSense is helping you a lot in typing your code. So you just type here, let's say, I'm going to type input and conversions. So if I type this and if I execute this, you can press F5, or you can just click this play button. So as you can see here, user input and conversion, this is the output on the screen. That's what I was expecting. Right, so let's type our code now. The code will be like more to take some user inputs and see what do we get. So by default, as I mentioned, everything will be treated as string. So if I type here, let's say, so if I enter a number, let's say how I'm going to store it. Let's say n equal to console.readline. So if I use this, as I mentioned a while ago, that by default every user input is treated as a string. So what I'm trying to do now, I'm trying to enter the user input in this number, which is an integer. So it gives me a problem. It says if you hover the mouse on it, they are not compatible. So as you can see from the error message when you hover on it, it does not accept the user input in this variable number. They say read the full next now the standard input. Right. Cannot implicitly convert type string to int. So two options. One option is to make this as a string. Yeah, this will be fine. But the problem here is we want this to be a number as type integer. So I'm going to make it integer. Now, to convert this into integer, I have two options. One option is, let's say, convert dot to int. You see, it says int16 for short, as we discussed in a data type 2 bytes. 34 for int, 4 bytes. int64 for 8 bytes. And as you can see, these are unsigned integer methods. So I just want to store it as a 4-byte integer. So I'm going to write here, right, let's see. So int number equal to convert that to int32 console.readline. Right. So now I'm going to type here. Let's say number is int number. Let me comment this out. So I can just write another option I have. Int dot parse. As you can see, the IntelliSense itself is helping. So the other option I have, I can just write int dot parse console dot read line, and as you can see, it will convert it into integer. So if I run this again, and I enter this time 45, as you can see, the integer number is 45 converted. So this is the conversion of integer. So what if I want to convert a double? So same, I can just say console write line, enter a double. So I'm going to type here double equal to, look, double dot parse console dot read line. So it's just helping me writing my code quite quickly. As you can see, in the IntelliSense is amazing. I can just say a double is, and that will add. Oops, sorry, put this in the wrong place. All right, plus, and I can, what's the number? D number. So it will show me my number as double. Okay, if I run this again, the first one integer is, let's say, 55, and the next one I enter 33.90, and look, it shows me my integer number entered converted, my double number entered is converted to double. Right, let me show you one more example about character. So let's say sometime we ask to enter the gender. So for gender, we can just say console.write line. Let's say we said gender, M, F, or O, whatever you want to enter. And then here we can have char equal to console dot read key. So this time I'm not using read line, I'm using read key because I want to take the user input as a character, not as a string. So here, the other built-in function we have is key char. So what it does actually, it will store that user input as a character in gender. Okay, so now I can just write here and say selected, and then I can type here plus gender, right? So here, as you can see, so we tried integer here, we tried double here, and we tried gender. And if I run this, it's going to ask me number, you're looking into the age or whatever you want to enter, 77.77. That is also entered. Now it's asked me to enter, let's say, the gender, and I entered M, and it says the gender selected is M. Right? That is also done. Now the other thing that I want, I think we should have a space here. I don't know why it doesn't. It should be a spot. Next line, enter your name. Name. To change anything because the name is a string and the console.read line by default is string. It will not create any problem for us. So your name is, and I can just plus name. Right. So let's have a look. Right. Why they give you a green underline here? Converting non-literal or possible null value to null value. Okay, don't worry, ignore this for now. This green line is mostly warning when you don't use something. Okay, so enter a number. I entered 56, and now I say enter a double number, so 45.55, that's a double number. And please enter gender, so I entered, let's say, M, and as you can see, the gender selected is M. And let's say I write name as Ali. Let's say your name is Ali. So in this quick tutorial, what did I show you? How to take the user input, and by default they are treated as string. So you can convert a number into a string into a number like this by using that, convert that to int32, 16, or 64 function built in, or you can use in.parse, and you can convert them into like integers and floats and doubles and decimals and all these options you have. So that's how conversion works in C#. I hope you understood how the user inputs work and how conversion works. In the next clip, I'm going to show you what is the difference between conversion and casting. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate what is casting now. You will see the difference between casting and conversion as well now. There are two types of casting. One is called implicit casting, like conversion, which is handled automatically by the compiler, like assigning an integer value to store in a double variable. In other words, when you want to store a smaller value in a bigger variable, like integer is 4 byte and double is 8 byte. So that is automatically handled by the compiler. You don't need to do anything. Automatically, a smaller item is adjusted in a bigger space. And that is called implicit casting. The second type of the casting is explicit casting, when you want to store a bigger item in a smaller space. For example, a double, which is an 8 byte value, and you want to store it in integer, which is 4 byte value. That is called explicit casting, where you need to manually convert and a double value into an integer value. So I'm going to demonstrate this now in my code. So we are back to the same program now. I'm just going to comment this out, which I used previously for the user input and conversion. And now I need this curly brace, which is part of the main method. So let's try to use this now, the casting exercise. So for this kind of exercise, I need a value just to kind of show that this is an integer number. In this number, I want to put, let's say, 344, which is an integer number. I want to store this in a double value, so I can equal to. Now, if I store, I can write like this as well, as the IntelliSense show me, to cast an integer number into double, but I don't have to do it. It will be automatically stored without any problem. Casting. When I want to store a smaller number in a bigger space, in a bigger variable, like storing in bigger number. Right, so as you can see here now, if I run this, it should show me that integer number and double number. They look same, but this one is 4 byte and this one is 8 byte. This is called implicit casting, when you want to store a smaller value in a bigger variable. Now let's try to store a bigger value in a smaller space. For example, let's say I'm creating another variable now. Let's assume int, and I can it's another number integer. Now if I store integer number in integer, no problem. As you can see, the system doesn't give me any problem. But I don't want to store here that smaller number. Instead, I want to store a double value in an integer variable. Now the system is not happy. As you can see, the green underline is mostly just like a warning that that number of value is not in use. But the red one, the compiler will not let you execute the code until we fix it. So if you hover the mouse on this, it gives you an error message here. It says, you cannot implicitly convert type double to int. An explicit conversion exists. Are you missing a cast? So what we need to do, so this is called an explicit, okay, when I want to store an integer number in a double. So let's print this now. It should work for us. The explicit, and I can just add another number to print it on the screen. that it works as expected. So let's see on the screen now. Right, so we got 344 as an integer. Now this double number 344, that double we converted back to integer, 4 bytes. And that was an explicit conversion because we explicitly converted a double number into an integer. Right, I'm trying to create another variable type double now. That is, let's say I'm creating 45.67. That's not a problem. I can, let's say second, let's say. So if I would just want to display this number, I would just say D number 2. It will display as usual, but what I'm trying to do now in a minute, as you can see, it works as expected. I want to cast this number into another integer number. That is, okay, so now I'm casting this, which is 45.67, into this number, D number 2, into an integer number. Now remember, this is 45.67. Okay, and we want to convert it into integer. That means I want to store only round numbers, not fractions. So let's see what will happen to this. So for now, it does explicit conversion. It is converting my double number, 45.67, into integer and store here. It doesn't give me any compiler error. Now let's see and print this. Yeah, what we get from this 45.67. So if I just type here, let's say enter conversion. Now let's say, and that is int number 2. So this one is quite nice to see what we're going to get from this 45.67. Right, so we got 45 instead of 45.67. That means when we do explicit casting, we may lose some part of the number. Like we lost 6.67, and we only got 45 when we casted explicitly a double number into an integer number. So that's the difference between this casting and conversion. In casting, when we do explicit casting, we may lose part of the number. Okay, so I hope you understood conversion and casting now. And within the casting, we covered implicit casting, which is this one, converting an integer into double. And then explicit casting is one example is here, and one example is this one. In this one, we did not lose anything because 344 simply converted from double to integer. But here, because it was 45.67, we lost this fraction number, 0.67, and we only stored 45 in our number 2. Thank you for watching.